This is Mother, Invasion from the Unknown, or Challenge from the Unknown depending on who you ask. This is a choose-your-own-adventure book published in 1989. These books are made up of hundreds of choices and scenarios to play out, with the book directing the player which page to flip to in order to continue the adventure. It's a fun concept, but most importantly, it has a ton of lore. Though its status as canon or not is a bit of a debate. I say it's a hard no personally, but I think there's room to adopt some details as headcanons here. The book itself was only released in Japan, since the initial release of Mother never made it out the country at the time, so it's all in Japanese. However, there is a fan translation done by Nyasu Nekoban, which brings me to my main point for making this video. Earlier this year, we restored an obscure Mother game called Slot Brothers, allowing many to play it for the first time. So I thought, hey,
do it again.
And so I'm proud to say a small team and I have turned it into a fully fledged visual novel you can play for free right now, with some original art done for it. This full-on remake is available to download or play in browser on Mother Forever, link in the description. And you can follow EarthBound VN on Twitter for more updates. I want to emphasize though that this build is more like a beta. The entire game works, but we're planning on doing a big overhaul polish update for it with many more assets, to make it much prettier. If you would be interested in contributing to the project, we are looking for people who can help with these things, and have an application link in the description as well. And we are actually planning on creating one for the sequel as well, but we'll talk about that one another time. During this process, I had to map out every decision and branching path the game has in order to ensure it was programmed correctly, which luckily I had the space for on this new E7 standing desk that today's sponsor, FlexiSpot, sent me, because it turned out like this. It's been very helpful because outside the space it provided me to work on this, it's also super easy to attach my equipment to, something that was always a struggle with my old desk. And since it's a standing desk, you can also adjust its height to work in the most comfortable position for you, which is great for me, helping me to not be hunched over all day. I'd never used a standing desk before, so I was a bit nervous to adjust it, but to be honest, it's probably the most stable desk I've ever had.
I can hardly even move it.
And the built-in USB-C ports have been great for charging things. If you're in the market for a new desk like the E7, you can take advantage of FlexiSpot's Black Friday promotions and use this code to get an extra $30 off the E7 standing desk. Thank you so much again to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. I truly appreciate the upgrade here and the support. Meatball loves it too. So let's talk more about the contents of the game now. I'm not going to cover everything in the book as it has almost 500 decisions to make throughout, but we're going to take a look at some interesting elements about it. Spoiler warning by the way, if you intend on playing it for yourself. It was a part of a huge line of these books known as the Futabasha Game Book series, which had about 80 installments adapting several Famicom, Super Famicom, and Mega Drive games primarily. These were usually commissioned by video game companies as promotional material, and although some were produced outside of Japan, these were different lines. Nintendo actually continued making these other ones though up until the early 2000s, so they definitely had a market. Some even aimed at other audiences. The book is pretty small and was generally aimed at elementary or junior high students, and you can see here on the spine that it was 430 yen, which equates to about $366 USD in 2025, which I can assure you is not what I paid for it. The story, interestingly, gives specific dates of several events that happen in the prologues, even more so than the original Famicom game did. One of the most interesting elements is the main character himself. We can see from the cover that Ninten got a slight redesign with his hat and jacket, but the differences don't stop there. In this adaptation, he was actually given a whole new name. This is Doug Halloway, making this version of Ninten of English descent. So if you've seen this last name attached to him somewhere online, this is why. In addition, Anna, who notably uses two N's in the spelling of her name, is Anna Bruton, also English, and Lloyd is Lloyd Schneider, making him German. Teddy, however, was cut and makes no appearance at all for some reason, much like the novel adaptation, which I covered here. It's a weird pattern with Mother's promotional material to exclude him. While Anna is largely the same in her design, Lloyd, like Doug, also saw some alterations. They gave him brown hair, a white shirt, and a green jacket. There are a few instances of promo material giving Lloyd brown hair actually, so I wonder if these iterations were based on an earlier design he might have had. Lloyd also notably has PSI abilities, making this the only time in the entire series every party member has them. While this was certainly a time when Nintendo had a much looser grip on how their IPs were handled outside their walls, these are some pretty significant differences, and that's because Shigesato Itoi gave the author, Akio Higuchi, express permission to adapt it as he saw fit, much like the novel. The game takes place in Maine, a clear reference to Stephen King's works, and is even alluded to by the author. Doug's parents' names are Carol and Jack, but the twins' names are kept intact. His father, however, has been missing for 6 months, and his mom just up and threw out all of his things, giving up any hope he'll return. It seems a bit rash if you ask me. Leaving Doug's house, the game begins, and it plays out largely like the video game counterpart. It only has 5 melodies though instead of 8, and some events are switched around, but overall not a bad adaptation. The melodies to collect are the canary, the dragon, the piano, the cactus, and eaves, discarding the doll, the tombstone, and worst of all, the singing monkeys. The player has all these sheets to keep track of for their progress, and battles are relatively simple. Most only last a couple turns. You can die pretty easily though, which is annoying, but the book never specifies any sort of game over scenario, just endings, so it's pretty lenient, by letting you go back at any point. And you can actually grind in this, by fighting most enemies repeatedly, healing at Doug's house, then repeating. There are quite a few exploitable loops throughout the player can abuse for healing and training in this way. The early game caps you at 50 XP before lifting it later though, but it still really slants it in the player's favor. The book also has several of these cool illustrations throughout, which were done by Kenji Masuda, who, assuming this is the same one, has worked on several anime series. Again though, not positive. They have an Astro Boy sort of look to them, which I think fits pretty well given Tezuka's American influences. Another interesting story choice is that Doug, Anna, and Lloyd are also said to be blood related. They're all descended from George and Maria's 3 children, so they're all first cousins, and it reiterates this several times throughout, even choosing to do so, weirdly enough, while Doug and Anna are sharing a romantic moment in the mountain cabin. I guess if I was being honest, my feelings for Anna may have been a bit more complicated than I thought. But according to my great-grandpa's diary, me and Anna, and Lloyd too, were all related by blood. So in other words, they were like a sister and brother to me. All of this while he's like stealing glances at her. Like, I knew the Mother series took some inspiration from Star Wars, but man. Something really notable about this book are all the gruesome deaths. And I mean it when I say deaths, because many would assume that implies a game over. However, as stated before, this isn't the case. You see, the game doesn't have game overs where you lose. It has 45 endings, 44 of which are some dark way the party meets its demise. Here are some of my favorites. One where they're confronting the R7038. The robot fires his laser beam at them and turns them all to ash. Another time they get sliced in half by it. Yeah, this robot is out to get them, man. It hunts them through the countryside, the mountains, into a lake. It's like the Terminator. The trio escapes it narrowly twice, and no, there is no scenario where you beat it. At best, you survive. Eve eventually beats it, but yeah, it's intense. Doug gets shanked by a woman, mauled by a bear, falls to his death, pierced. It's frickin' brutal. Like, listen to this death if you die to Geek, the final boss. He mind controls Doug by reflecting his PSI back at him, and if you don't meet the level check, this happens.
You tried to kill your sister. You wanted to kill your sister. You wanted her to die. You tried to murder her.
Under the relentless attack of all those horrible images, my sense of reason began to break down. Leave me alone! Without even realizing what I was doing, I started to run. Then I tried to ram myself as hard as I could into that giant floating ship, but there was no longer any ground beneath me. I had dashed right off of a cliff and found myself tumbling into an endless abyss. I don't want to spoil all of them, but believe me, I've hardly scratched the surface. Maybe I'll make a video on all of them someday if you guys are interested. That said, since these are endings, let's see how fast we can speedrun this thing. Okay, so this is the route I have mapped out here. I believe this is the fastest route to an ending, so let's give it a shot. Ready, set, go. All right, so first we got to get to page 24. We're going to flip through those first few pages. Okay, now we go to 153. Oh man, I overshot it. 245. Okay, now to 51. That one was pretty flawless, I gotta say. 224. Come on. 224. Got it. All right, now 141. Holy crap, that was like perfect almost. Ah, gosh dang it. I dropped it. 43. Now to 69. Oh my gosh, go back. And done. Okay. Not too bad. I think I can do better though. Ready, set, go. 56 seconds. That's PB. See if you can beat me. One of the most bizarre moments is when Lloyd gets turned into a dog for a bit from using the Onyx hook. Makes about as much sense as it sounds like. By the way, check out this awesome portrait of Dog Lloyd we have. And yes, I did consider at one point just using a PNG of my dog Meatball. The old man from the desert at one point hunts the party with a real gun in LA, which is awesome, as in the game he just sort of scolds you. And it's revealed that Queen Mary in this retelling is actually an alien who fell in love with Doug's great-grandfather George, making the trio part alien, I guess? It's mentioned earlier they had 3 children, but then also went on to conceive Geeg himself, making him biologically Doug's great-uncle, as well as to Anna and Lloyd. And I think this is meant to explain how they all have PSI powers. What? The final fight with Geeg is pretty tough, making the trio see horrible visions of their past mistakes, as well as, quote, hell itself. But it's basically an endurance match. Things go back to normal and Doug's dad returns, but is given no face. How new wave of them. The funniest story thing to me though is during the epilogue. Doug just decides not to have asthma anymore, basically saying he needs to grow up more or less. It's like those kids who used to say things like, no, poison ivy doesn't make you itchy, it's just all in your head, man. And that's Mother Invasion of the Unknown. It's a neat side note in the franchise. It's really weird, but all in all, actually not a bad adaptation of a video game to the novel form, without it just being a straight up retelling of the story. It really pushes the boundaries of what one can do with this medium, and despite it being a bit confusing when playing it this way, I commend the effort made here. Don't forget to check out the remake, thanks for watching, and thank you again to FlexiSpot. Don't forget to check out their Black Friday deals in the description. Much love.